Hello and welcome to this lesson on conversion graphs. Please make sure you watch the whole of this video right through to the end because it has some really important instructions for both lessons today. So please watch the whole of this video. So conversion graphs. Is there a word within the word conversion that makes you think about what this lesson might be about? Well, within the word conversion is the word convert, basically. So to convert something from one thing to another. So that's what we are going to be doing today, converting one unit of measurement to another. So what units of measurement do you know? You probably know quite a few of these units of measurement that you can see on the screen here. But what you might not know is that they can be categorised into metric or imperial measurements. Now, you might wonder what on earth I mean by imperial. Well, British imperial was an official system of measurement in Great Britain from 1824 until the adoption of the metric system in 1965. So we officially, if you like, adopted the use of metric units, these ones over here, in 1965. But in actual fact, I'm sure you know that we actually still use some imperial measurements today, such as miles and pints. So we use some of these imperial measurements still today. So therefore, we need to know how to convert between the two of them. We need to be able to convert metric to imperial or imperial to metric because we do use both types of measurement. So, why are they called metric? Well, hopefully you can see here that within some of these words is those letters M-E-T-R, which you can see here, M-E-T-R. So that's usually the giveaway as to whether they are metric. Some of these you might hear slightly less of, like yards and pounds and ounces. These are less frequently used these days, but you will see that they sometimes still crop up on things. So basically you need to be able to convert between the two types of measurements, metric and imperial, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So, have you ever thought about the unit of measurement that is on road signs? So here you can see some road signs that you might see near us in Shrewsbury. And what's the unit of measurement here, the side of this sign here and here? These are miles. So we actually measure distances on our roads in miles, which is a imperial measurement. And yet, in France, here's a road sign from France, they actually use kilometres. These are all kilometres here. So they use a metric measurement. So therefore, you can see how important it is to be able to have some kind of conversion that you can do. And certainly by the end of tomorrow, you'll probably be able to do a rough conversion in your head quite easily. So we use miles, which is an imperial measurement, on our roads. And yet in France they use a metric unit. Here are some other road signs from the UK, and these are referring to widths and heights. And here you can see actually they've got both a metric and an imperial measurement on here. Here they've got 2.9 metres, which is the metric width or metric length. And here they've got 9 feet and 6 inches. There's a tiny little dash here and a double dash here. basically like an apostrophe and then a speech mark symbol almost after the 9 and the 6. And that indicates 9 feet and 6 inches. So they've given you both the metric and imperial there, just in case some people are still working in the imperial measurements. And similarly with the height here, you've got 5.7 metre height, that's your metric, and yet you've got 18 feet and 8 inches as the imperial height there. So these are still in use today, despite that official conversion to the metric system, or adoption of the metric system in 1965. You might also have come across one of these at a fairground or theme park, for example, a height restriction. Sometimes they're given in feet and inches. Probably mostly today you'll see them in metric in the UK, but occasionally you might see them in imperial measurements, so in feet and inches. So I want you to be aware of these when you are going about your daily life, so you can read and interpret them. So here, you might go to a theme park in Florida, for example. Here's an example from Florida, and here you've got heights in inches. So you've got to be able to think about, well, what kind of height is that in the metric system? Okay, let's start with an example. So converting here between miles, an imperial measurement, and kilometres, a metric measurement. So how do we use this graph to convert between these two units of measurement? Where it says here is a kilometre mile conversion graph, express each of the following distances in kilometres. Well, I've got 3 miles, so what you absolutely must do is the following. You must go along your graph at 3 miles. You must show this pencil line at 3 miles. Go along to hitting your graph and then read off it going down. And I can see there's 10 squares here, so I reckon that is 4.8 there. 4.8 is the conversion. 4.8 kilometres. What about 4.5 miles? Well, let's do that in a different colour so that we don't get confused. 4.5 miles, so I'm going to go across again at 4.5 miles, which is going to be halfway between 4 and 5, and read down. So whenever you're doing this, you must show with a ruler and pencil going across your graph and reading down. And I reckon that's 7.2. 7.2 kilometres there. Okay, express each of the following distances in miles now. So we're going a different way. We're reading up from the horizontal axis and we're reading up to the line. So 2 kilometres, I'm going to go up to the line here. And that is, if I read off 1.2 there. 1.2 miles this time. Is it going to let me write using this pen? So there we go, 1.2 miles. And then 4, same with 4, read off your graph. And what do you think? It should be roughly double this, shouldn't it really? Let's read off the graph. 2.5, yeah, just more than that, slightly more. And let's just do 6 whilst we're at it here. Reading off there. So here for 4 kilometres, I had 2.5 miles roughly. 2.5 miles. And for 6, I read off that was just over 3.7 there. And they are all miles. So yeah, imagine if you were driving in France, you might need to convert miles to kilometres or vice versa. It's always a useful skill to have. Okay, example 2 says here is a graph showing the conversion between pounds and euros. So imagine if you're still in France and you're now changing your money from pounds to euros so you can spend it. Showing clearly where you take your reading, change 27 euros into pounds. So I'm going to read off 27 euros, 20, 25, 26, 27. Let's read off there. Again, you must show this using a pencil and ruler on your graph. And I can see that that is £20. Okay, what about £60 into euros? Well, I've got a bit of a problem there because my graph doesn't go up to £60. But is there anything on my graph that I could use to help me get to £60? I reckon I can use £30 to figure out what my £60 would be. So go up to £30, read off, that's 40 euros. So I'm going to use the fact that £30 is 40 euros to figure out that £60 is going to be double that, so it's going to be 80 euros. But you have to use your conversion graph for whichever part of it you can. So in this case I used it for the £30 conversion and then show how you've got to this bit here. Okay, and final example for conversion graphs. Here is a graph showing the conversion between metres and feet. Showing clearly where you take your readings, convert 5 metres into feet. So let's go across at 5 metres. I'll read up from 5 metres. Read up from 5 metres. And then read across. Okay, so that's just over 16 there. I reckon that's 16.5 feet. At least that's as best we can read off the graph for it to be. 16.5 feet. And I'm going to abbreviate feet there to FT. 16.5 feet. And then 40 feet into metres. Well, I haven't got 40 feet here, so I'm going to go to something that's going to help me with 40 feet. I reckon I'm going to go to 20 feet, read off, and we've got that it's 6. So I'm going to say, well, 20 feet is 6 metres, so therefore 40 feet is going to be double that. So 40 feet is going to be 12 metres. Okay. Now you should be able to do worksheet 13. Once you've done that, if you have any spare time, have a go at this extension. Now please don't stop the video just yet, keep watching for the moment because I've got a few further instructions. So here's the extension if you finish worksheet 13 early. So quick summary so far. In your period 1 lesson, after watching this video to the end, do worksheet 13. Have a go at the extension if you have time, that's the one I've just shown there. In period 5 today, I would like you to complete any unfinished work from this week. Make sure photos of it are on class notebook. And then these 3 final tasks I'm going to explain now, so hopefully all will become clear in a second. Find out your individual currency conversion for tomorrow. I'm going to tell you that in a second. Go on to maths workouts. I'll talk you through that in a moment. And then you can have a go at some of the practical tasks if you wish. They're optional though. So these final 3 things I'm going to talk through now, 3 to 5. So on this website here, I want each one of you to find out the conversion rate or the exchange rate between our British pound and each one of these. So I've picked out a country and currency for you to find the exchange rate for, okay? So on this website, I'm going to talk you through it in a moment. You're going to look up this currency. So here's an example. Here's the website. Here's the website. This is what you'd see on this website here. And you can just leave it as 1. Put it into pounds, GBP, British pounds, and then put whatever currency I've asked you to look up into here. Okay, you should be able to search for the currency that I've asked you to in here. So leave the 1 the same, the GBP the same, and put your currency into here. Press this little yellow button, and then you will get this, okay? And this is basically how many, in this example, how many Indian rupees I would get for 1 pound. So this is what we call the conversion rate or the exchange rate. So make a note of that for tomorrow's lesson. Once you have done that for your individual currencies. Okay, and next thing, maths workout, username, pressed file, password, range 26. Go to statistics and probability, line graphs, number 5. And then within line graphs, go to target 4, because that does your conversion graphs. So just target 4 within that. And then finally, a couple of practical tasks. I've got 3 practical tasks. These are optional. You don't have to do these. These are just if you've got spare time and you want to get away from the screen. 1, measure your height in meters, centimeters, and feet and inches. You might have within your house, if you ask mum or dad nicely, you might have a tape measure that might have inches on one side and centimetres on the other, and perhaps you could get them to help you measure your height in both metres, or centimetres and metres, which is your metric measurement, or in feet and inches, which is your imperial measurement. Secondly, you could, with your parents' permission, have a careful look around your home for items that have both metric and imperial measurements on them. For example, your ruler, food packaging, like I've given you, or cooking instructions. I'm going to give you some examples of these. Recipes, scales or spoons in the kitchen. You might find some examples of those in the kitchen. But make sure you get your parents' permission and make sure you take care. And the final practical task you can have a go at, this is if you're really keen and if you've got plenty of time and the permission of your parents, is you could do some baking. So I found this lovely recipe for some Shrewsbury biscuits. I found it in my little Winnie the Pooh's Tea Time cookbook. And I noticed that they give the recipe in both the metric and imperial measurements, and I thought that was quite nice. So you could have a go at that. Make sure you ask for help and parents' permission first though. So there's some practical tasks that you could have a go at if you had some time.